Jonathan Chick back with you with another episode of Shtisel Man, and I want to further get involved in the discussion of why there should be a Shtisel season 4. Now, I realize that based on some comments that were made on my previous video, that yes, the actors and actresses all have bigger gigs now, and they're more famous, and they're getting more money, and they're not going to return to this humble little show where they got started. Now the money train is flowing, and why would they consider going back to Shtisel? That's all fine and good, but I want to make a case, a big picture case about why Shtisel matters and why a future season or seasons would be so important. So the Jewish world, specifically the Haredi world, where of course the Shtisel series is set in, really took huge hits, almost an earthquake. It took place in the last month or so when the leading and most prominent therapist and author for children and for young adults was accused of sexual abuse, and pretty clear that this individual did commit these acts. Many reports from throughout almost 25 years. This man tragically, after the reports were corroborated, went to his son's grave and committed suicide. It's interesting that if you look into this individual's writings, you will find almost a foreshadowing of this event in one of his stories, which is a separate discussion. But this caused a tremendous, like, as I said, an earthquake in the Haredi world. The Haredi world and the Chiloni world, essentially the Orthodox and the secular communities in Israel, have been at odds for almost since the existence, and before the existence of the State of Israel. And this has been a divide that is caused tremendous angst and hatred, and there's guilt on both sides. Having a religious, experience, living a Haredi life, is not a license to act in a obtuse manner. There are people who do wear the garb and do wear the frock and whatnot, and are people of low ethics. There are people in the Chiloni world, in the secular world, that have tremendous ethical compasses and live very meaningful lives, in spiritual lives, but they are not people with a religious bent. And in both communities, there are problems. Do I particularly believe that one should adopt an Orthodox lifestyle? Me being personally Orthodox, I think it enriches and it does give a spiritual life even more meaning, and I think it is ultimately what is a very beneficial lifestyle. That being said, one must respect every human being for their choices and where they're at. Some people in the secular world, for example, might have left the path of Orthodox Judaism due to something like sexual abuse, or due to a terrible experience with a teacher or a parent or whatnot. And we respect everyone's choices, and we respect everyone's story. So everyone has their story, everyone has their story arc, and there are different ways of expressing one's spirituality. However, this divide between the Chiloni and Haredi world, I believe, reached a level of understanding and of bridging through the series of Shtisel more than any other series or effort that I have seen in my many years in both Jewish education and Jewish communal life. So what I'm doing here is making the case that why Shtisel matters. It matters, yes, globally for people who are not Jewish and who are entranced, and by the series and the tremendous writing and acting and the family portrayed and all that. But for the Jewish world, this series matters. This series matters as a bridge between the Chiloni and Haredi world, and within the Orthodox world in Israel. You have Haredim, and you have Chardal, and you have Tzioni, and you have Hesder, and you have many different iterations within Orthodoxy. You do have Reform and Conservative, of course, both more in America than or in the world than in Israel. And then you have, of course, the secular. And can we come to a place where we bridge this gap through regular dialogue or through other understanding? Yes, we can. But sometimes an outlier, a shtisel, a series like this, shows the human struggle of a person who grew up in a religious and what some would think of a doctrinized type of lifestyle, and yet they have the same familial and emotional and needs and heartbreaks and love and understanding that everyone does, that a secular person would, a person with tremendously broad-minded ideas in the way they would consider it, a person with no religion. And yet this series is able to find a divide and find a way where we can see the humanity, not just the black frocks and not the, exceptions to the rule of the people who throw rocks and people who will, God forbid, beat up someone for not dressing modestly in some super Haredi enclave, or someone like this individual who did this terrible act over years of abuse and abusing his position. So those are hopefully the outliers and the exceptions to the rule. I don't say they don't happen. They definitely do. And someone can be fully religious and still fall to such terrible, terrible lows and terrible depths. But what this series does do is that it creates an understanding that for the majority of Haredim, they're just trying to get by. They're just trying to live a good life, a life of meaning, a life of family, a life of devotion, and they're struggling like all of us. Because that's life. Life is a struggle. But life has tremendous meaning when we take that struggle and we do something with it. So that's why Shtisel matters. That's why Shtisel, a future season, would be so essential, in my opinion, to continue and also healing post these tragic previous events. And in fact, I would even advocate for exploring in a future season, some of in delicate ways, the impact perhaps of sexual abuse on an individual, and or emotional abuse or heartbreak or other things that even maybe, or people going off the path, leaving religion and finding oneself on the street and whatnot. These are types of things that I think delicately and in the ways that the authors and the writers have written this series can be addressed. And I think it can be a tremendous, tremendous gift to all of us, specifically the Jewish world and community, to continue with a series like this. I appreciate you watching, and please feel free and share. I am doing some speaking engagements on the Shtisel and why Shtisel matters. You can certainly email me at shtiselman@gmail.com. Please feel free to share and subscribe again. And again, I wish everyone the best, and let's hope for a future with Shtisel Season 4. Take care.